Hey honeybees, my name is Raven, that's Jasper, this is October, and welcome back to our channel! Subscribe to become part of the hive. Be sure to like and ring the notification bell. Thanks honeybees! Enjoy the video! Meow! Hello friends, welcome back. It's been a minute since I've made a review or any sort of video. It's been a couple weeks but I've been really busy. I have a full-time job, but I also perform on the side, and I've been doing a lot of shows the past couple of months. And these videos take a lot of time and effort. I just haven't had the time lately, but finally getting back to doing it and catching up on some movies that I've seen recently. I've seen a couple movies in the past few months that I thought I might do a review about, but after seeing them, there's really just not much to say. So I'm probably gonna lump a lot of the movies that I saw recently into like a summer catch up, more towards the end of summer. Specifically, Boy Kills World. I was really excited for that movie because I love Bill Skarsgård. The trailer made it look so awesome. I get tricked by trailers all the time because I don't want to say it was a disappointment, but I was disappointed by it. So I'll definitely talk about that one later. It's just not worth a whole video or half a video to talk about. Same with the movie Tarot that came out recently. I really thought I was going to talk about that one because it seemed like the perfect movie for me. I love horror. I love tarot cards. I do readings for myself and friends all the time, and I thought it was going to be a really cool concept seeing these tarot card creatures kill people, but it was way more low key than I thought it was going to be or than it should have been. It was it was PG-13, and it really should have been rated R. There was like no blood or anything in it, and the creatures didn't really do anything. It was like a regular slasher. We didn't get anything cool about the creatures. And that's really all I have to say about that. I'll probably mention that one later too, but it just wasn't good enough or bad enough to warrant at least half a video on it. And recently I also saw Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes that came out, but that's not really a standalone movie. If I talk about that one, I'd want to talk about the entire series, which I will probably do at some point. So, what's left of the movies that I've seen in the last couple of months is I saw the TV Glow, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So it's been a couple weeks since I've seen this movie. I did make a short TikTok on it, just kind of summarizing my thoughts right after I saw it. But even in that TikTok, I was kind of unsure of how I felt. It took me at least a week or two. I believe it's been like 2 or 3 weeks since I've seen it. It took me a while to even decide if I liked it or not. It's to me, and I'll probably put this in the title somewhere or in the thumbnail. It's an extremely divisive movie, and by that I mean divisive just in my own brain, but also among my friends that have seen it. Some of us really liked it, some of us absolutely hated it. There didn't seem to be any in between there. And when I was watching it, and right after I watched it, I really wasn't sure if I thought it was a 2 out of 5 terribly executed sci fi or a 4.5 out of 5 not super greatly executed but wonderful idea of a movie. And I kind of feel all of that at once still, but in the week seeing it, I think I've decided that it is a good movie and I did like it. And one of the main reasons I feel that way, that I feel like it's a good movie, is because I haven't really stopped thinking about it. In the days after I saw it, it was kind of all I could think about. And yeah, there was a part of me thinking, like, wow, maybe that wasn't super good. Maybe there's a part of me thinking maybe it was great. And so there was some negativity in there. But one thing I love in a movie is when it makes me think, when it makes me feel something so strongly. And I definitely had a lot of strong feelings while watching this movie and leaving this movie. And I was left with a lot to think about. The worst kind of movies are the ones where you watch them and you leave and you never think about them again. And just by virtue of that alone, it's better than a movie that was maybe funny going through it, but I completely forgot about it later. That's just a nothing film. Movies are art. I like to appreciate them as art. And a commonality in many great forms of art is the ability to evoke emotion from the audience. And that's what I Saw the TV Glow did. I'm not going to go through this one in too much detail. I've been trying not to go through every single scene in a movie in my reviews anymore, but also I do recommend it. So if you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend watching it. I am going to give spoilers, but I'm not going to give too much away. So you can still watch this video, just prepare to be spoiled. Basically, I Saw the TV Glow takes place mainly in the 90s. It's kind of over the course of many years, starting when our two main characters, Owen, played by Justice Smith, and Maddie, played by Bridget Lundy-Maine, meet in middle school, high school. Owen is in 7th grade, Maddie is in 9th grade, and they bond over this TV show that they are both interested in. Maddie watches it, Owen has heard of it before but has not been allowed to watch it. They both come from very strict seeming households. We don't get too much about that, but we do get hinted along the way that they both don't have the greatest relationship with their parents, Maddie and her father, Owen and his father. The show is called The Pink Opaque, and he's seen ads for it. He's interested in it, but he's never been allowed to watch it because it airs at like 10:30 p.m. at night, and his bedtime is 10 o'clock. And his parents won't even let him stay up an hour longer past bedtime to watch this movie on a Saturday. His dad specifically, very, very strict. And having this strict father and this mother who isn't necessarily doing too much to help the situation has caused Owen to be quite an introverted individual. He doesn't talk much. He runs into Maddie one day at school. She is reading a book about the Pink Opaque, and she tells him about it. Obviously, it's something she's very passionate about, and he ends up sneaking out of the house, and he ends up lying to his parents about having a sleepover with a friend so that he can go to Maddie's house to watch it. And from there, this sort of strange friendship blossoms between them, where they do bond over this show. They watch it together, but they never talk outside of that. She tapes it for him when he can't watch, and so he ends up watching the entire series through her tapes, and we kind of see this develop over the next couple of years until the show gets canceled. During this time, Maddie is being ostracized at school. She's a lesbian. She's accused of grabbing her friend's breast, and that causes some problems. Owen's mother becomes terminally ill and dies, but throughout this, they do still share the Pink Opaque. And this era, Maddie resolves to run away. She invites Owen to come with her, but he's too scared. He doesn't go, and he never sees Maddie again for at least a couple years at that point. Shortly after that, the show is canceled, and Owen just goes on to live his life. His life is pretty mundane after this. He still lives with his father, who is still very strict, but he's an adult now. He has a job, and he basically just goes to work and goes home. His coworkers don't really have a whole lot of respect for him. They bully him just like he was in school. He's still very, very introverted. And though he still considers The Pink Opaque his favorite show, it's mostly left his mind. He does still watch it here and there. He does still have the tapes, but he's off living his life until one day Maddie reappears, and then it starts to get weird. She explains that she has actually been in the show, and the show was canceled after 5 seasons. She explains that she was able to enter the show through methods I'll get into in a second to create the 6th season, but she needs him to complete it because Owen is also a part of the show. Basically, they reflect the characters in the show. The Pink Opaque is about these 2 teenagers, Isabel and Tara, who have this psychic connection with each other and use it to fight different villains of the week in this show. Reminiscent of like Supernatural or Buffy the Vampire Slayer is kind of in my mind. That's a show I really liked as a kid. So The Pink Opaque definitely seems like a show that I would probably be into at the time. So basically, Maddie and Owen kind of reflect each of these characters. When Maddie returns, she explains that she had to basically die to become a part of the show, which is the actual reality. And wherever they're living now is some sort of hell or limbo, because the show ended where the big bad of the series, Mr. Moon, essentially comatosed the 2 main characters and buried them alive. So Maddie buried herself alive, and this sort of, I guess, for lack of a better phrasing, created this portal that she was able to come through and enter the world of the Pink Opaque, and she needs Owen to do it too so that they could finally film and complete the 6th season of this other reality, being the Pink Opaque TV show. Which doesn't sound as complicated as I think I'm making it sound. The whole film has these sci-fi fantasy elements throughout where you're not sure what is true reality and what is not, and it just kind of gets more strange as the film goes. It builds up to that. It doesn't just come out of nowhere. But we do see through flashbacks as Maddie is explaining this to Owen. This is years later, by the way. As Maddie is explaining this whole thing to Owen because she's been gone for so long, she is questioning him about when he looks back on the show, does it feel like a memory? Does it feel like he's experienced it? Or as something that he was watching? Implying that these are their true selves, and in the end of the 5th season, when Mr. Moon poisoned and buried the 2 main girls on the show, Isabel and Tara, they were sent into some sort of limbo hell where they became Maddie and Owen, and Maddie and Owen are actually Isabel and Tara living in this limbo, which is very interesting. The interesting part about that for me was not knowing if that was real or not. The ambiguity. I do appreciate some ambiguity here and there in a movie. And with Maddie's journey of being buried alive, she kind of explains how she figured out how to get out of that coma, and now she's here to take Tara, Owen, back as well. Which makes a lot of sense because they both, as Maddie and Owen, have these not so great lives, not great relationships with their parents. Neither of them have a lot of friends. They're both very shy and introverted and just seem miserable all the time. Justice Smith, Owen specifically, who Justice Smith tends to play characters like this a lot. This is kind of just more of an extreme version, like the very, very socially awkward version of the socially awkward person he usually plays in films. And I thought he did a great job. But he specifically is like in this endless loop of first school, home, no friends, strict dad, and now work, home, no friends, strict dad. That seems like a version of hell to me. So anyway, Maddie tries to convince Owen to bury himself alive so that he could live his true self as Tara. There's also a lot of trans allegory in this. The film actually opens with trans flag imagery of Owen in one of those big parachute things that we all went under in school in like the trans flag colors, and then in flashbacks of him wearing a dress, getting closer to being Tara. It's not blatantly stated, but it is definitely heavily implied that there's a big trans allegory here.
The film, I think, in its deepest level is about a queer journey towards self-discovery for those who want to dig into the mysteries and try to unravel them.
I like girls, you know that, right?
Totally, that's fine.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
Which is not new for this filmmaker. The filmmaker who created I Saw the TV Glow made this film a couple of years ago called Let's All Go to the World's Fair. So let me just say about that one. That one also, very, very interesting concept. I hated the execution of that movie. I thought it was straight up boring, but I did like the idea. I'm not going to get too much into that film right now, but I think this filmmaker has come a long way in executing their very interesting ideas. In both cases, I did really like the ideas. I thought the stories were very unique. I liked the characters. Execution of Let's All Go to the World's Fair was just a little too low-key for me. And I Saw the TV Glow were a lot closer to that like fun, fantastical sci-fi stuff that makes this kind of premise more interesting. So they're getting better. They're definitely getting better. And there's these like trans allegories and themes of like queerness throughout both of these films. And I thought that whole theme was better executed in this film as well. But anyway, Owen chickens out again. He first, just like how he didn't want to run away with Maddie several years ago, he does not want to bury himself alive now for fear that this might not be true. And that's where the cool ambiguity is again as well. If he buries himself alive, he may have the opportunity to live his true self and live in this reality of the pink opaque that he has kind of wanted to be in his whole life, that he's admired his whole life, and get out of this reality where he is miserable. But the other side of that is none of this could be real at all, and maybe Maddie is on drugs, or he's imagining it, or we don't know what's happening. But the risk is too much for him, and he decides to just continue living his life as he's living it, and he really never sees Maddie again after that. She doesn't try to come back to convince him. She doesn't try to do anything. She lets him live his life in fear, essentially, in fear of not knowing what could have been. Then, the rest of the movie, we see Owen continuing to live his regular life. His dad dies, he keeps the house, he ends up getting his own family, he leaves his job at the movie theater to go work at some sort of Chuck E. Cheese-like family fun center, where he literally works for the rest of his life. We see him there as an old man. There is a part in the film as we watch him grow up where he gets a brand new TV. The TV that we see in the film is one of these little like box TVs that I drew. And let me just say, the lighting in the film specifically, loved. It's called I Saw the TV Glow, and a lot of lighting comes from the glow of a television, and not just on Maddie and Owen when they are watching TV, or Owen by himself when he watches the tapes that Maddie gave him, but his dad, when we see his dad watching TV, he's illuminated by the glow of the TV set. And there's just a lot of really interesting, cool lighting choices that really fit with the theme. So I did really appreciate that. But when we see Owen when he's older, he buys a new TV. He decides to revisit the pink opaque after all these years, now that it is streaming somewhere. He watches it, and it is completely different than what he remembers. We do see different clips of episodes throughout the film, of course, where it seems really dark and scary for kids of their age, but that's kind of why they're into it. And it seems really interesting and cool. When he rewatches it as an adult, it seems very, very kid like and stupid and just not nearly as good as he remembers it. And he says when he is rewatching it on streaming, he says that as he watched it, he just felt embarrassed because it was nothing like he had built up in his head, nothing like the nostalgia made it feel like. And perhaps that's true. Perhaps this was all in his head and it was all nostalgia, feeling, oh, if only I lived in my favorite show. I've definitely felt that way when I was a child. Everything would be better if I just lived in my favorite show. If I was a vampire slayer along with Buffy, I thought that all the time. I never thought that that's something that would actually happen, where in this case, maybe it would. I don't know, ambiguity. But revisiting that and seeing that it is not nearly anything like what you remember has to be disappointing. And he definitely was. And I think the movie should have ended there. He has this reality check, per se, where the pink opaque is nothing like he remembered. And he realizes that it was all fake. Or perhaps it wasn't. And just as his memories warped and as this different reality warps without him in it, it just presents itself differently now to him, now that he is so far removed from it. Who knows? But that would have been a great place to end. Unfortunately, it does not end there. There are a few more scenes where we see him as an old man, still working at this family fun center. And this scene isn't, though I just said I wanted the film to end before this isn't a bad scene. I just felt like there should have been a way to show this maybe before the revisiting of the show scene, because I felt like that was a really good place to end it. But anyway, where he's an old man and he's doing the same thing he's done presumably every day for many years at this point. Him and his coworkers are singing happy birthday to yet another child. It's just another day. And he just starts screaming, saying, this is not my life. This isn't it. I need to get out of here. He goes into the bathroom. He rips his chest open and there's TV static in there, which still is part of that ambiguity of, is this really happening? Or is this just his fantasy where he finds out he really did belong in the pink opaque this whole time, but now it's too late? Who knows? It did leave with a little more questions. I like the ambiguity of everything in the film before this scene, and that's why I think it didn't need to happen. I did like the scene of him screaming, realizing he's wasted his life when he did have the opportunity to perhaps live a better life, and maybe even getting buried alive would have been better at that point than living the life he's currently living. And that's not the only time that scene happens either. We really didn't need all of that anyway, because there was a previous scene when his dad was still alive where he was watching the pink opaque tape. He tries to get in the TV and he's kind of in there trying to enter this reality and live his true life, presumably. His dad pulls him out and he has this sort of like panic attack saying, "You are not my dad. This is not my life," screaming and crying. And so we already had that scene. And so this old man version was just kind of a different version of that same scene that we saw earlier. So it was unnecessary. But I did like that scene. It was the most emotional part of the film, where he is having this moment of, oh my God, this isn't my life. But he's still too afraid to do anything about it. And that's sad. That's another thing I think I should say about this movie. It's sad. It does not end happy at all. It ends of him as the old man apologizing for his outburst, and then that's it. But leading up to that point, definitely much to think about. And like I said, it's not just about the story itself. It's not just about the premise. I love the way the film looked. I love the aesthetic, the kind of like 90s, early 2000s aesthetic for the most part. The lighting, like I said, with TVs glowing and getting different lighting that wasn't just from, spotlights, natural lighting from things in the movie. I like the portrayals of the characters. Like I already said, Maddie and Owen are very, very similar characters, and they have a very interesting friendship dynamic. They're not really friends, but they have too much in common to not have a connection together. And maybe that's because they're really Isabel and Tara, and maybe that's because they're just two lonely kids existing in the same place at the same time. But I think the main theme of this film, which goes with the trans and queer allegory of the entire thing, is, to me, not knowing if your life is going where it's supposed to go. If there's opportunity for something better out there. If you just went and worked for it. Obviously, he was very scared to bury himself alive, but a lot of us are very scared to ask for a promotion, quit our jobs and find something else, put ourselves out there for a relationship. That's all scary. Leaving the life that we have in pursuit of something better is very, very scary and might not work out, but you'll never know if you don't take the risk. And the difference between these two characters is Maddie took the risk, and we can presume it paid off because we never saw her again, so we can assume that she went and lived that life that she wanted. Owen was always too afraid to take that risk. The couple opportunities he had, he didn't take it, and he ended up living this miserable, monotonous life. He does say a little bit later that he did end up getting a family of his own and he loved them. That's great. It's not all bad. Perfect. But his life could have been exponentially different and better, and he could have found happiness long before his father died and he got his own family. I just really loved that theme. You could relate it directly to transness, with Owen living as a man when in reality, or what he felt on this inside, or maybe what he really was supposed to be, was a woman. This whole theme of becoming who you are is very trans, is very queer. It can be, for sure. And I definitely respect that with this filmmaker. And like I said, yeah, you can relate it to gender and sexuality and all that, but you can relate it to any aspect of anyone's life, right? We can all take risks to make our life better if we don't like where we're at. We can all just kind of accept who we are and what we do and live our lives that way, right? That's a great theme because it can relate to anybody. So I did really appreciate the execution of this. There was a few things here and there, like I mentioned, I felt like it should have ended earlier. There was a few unnecessary scenes, some that dragged on a little much, but it still worked. It still worked, even if I didn't appreciate the execution in some places. The overall theme and story and characters, I thought outweighed anything that I could critique. And so I do want to say this is a good movie. I still am not really sure what I want to rate it. The rating scale is really tough for me on some movies. There's just some films that you cannot put a number on. I think for now, I'd like to say I Saw the TV Glow is 3.5 out of 5. It is teetering very, very close to 4. But a few of the problems with execution that I had just keep it from getting to that point. So really, it's more like a 3.7 out of 5. It's almost at that 4 stars. I'm definitely going to be looking at this filmmaker for their next film to see if they get even better at executing their ideas. So those are all my thoughts on I Saw the TV Glow. Let me know what you thought if you watched it. If you haven't seen it, I do recommend it. I do think it is something that needs to be experienced, whether you're someone that hates it or someone that likes it. It is still an experience. It is still something that I think needs to be processed. So let me know what you thought. Definitely looking forward to more films coming out later that I'm excited to sit down and review. But for now, that is it. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Thanks for watching, honeybees. Make sure to like and subscribe. Bye.
Meow.